All right, so in problem number 9, what we've got here is 2tan times sine squared, and then they want us to make it look like 2 sine to the 4th plus sine squared. All right, so all we're going to do is we're going to change this tangent squared into sine squared over cosine squared, and then multiply it by 2. And then we're going to multiply it by sine squared, and so of course 2 sine squared times sine squared is going to be 2 sine to the 4th. I'm feeling good about that. And still divided by cosine squared, so I multiply both sides of the equation by cosine squared, and then I think maybe I'm going to change that cosine squared into 1 minus sine squared, since my equation has got all sines. And I'm going to get everything on one side now, and lo and behold, that's what we're talking about. So that's the answer to the part 1. Now in part 2, they want us to actually solve it. So in this case, you remember that we talked about these what are they called? Hidden quadratics or disguised quadratics. Anyway, we're going to treat this like a quadratic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take h and I'm going to say it's equal to sine squared. And so that means that h squared is going to equal sine to the 4th. So now I'm going to replace all these with my h's, and I get this equation, which is quadratic. And then I go ahead, and you can use the quadratic formula if you want, but this is pretty factorable. And so I find out that my answers for h are going to be -1 and +1/2. Now then I replace the h with what it's equal to. Well, it's equal to sine squared. So I replace that, and I get this, and then I get that, and then equals 1/2. So now all I got to do is solve. I'm going to square root both sides. So the problem is I cannot square root a -1. And so this pretty much stops right here. Now I still have to square root both sides on the other one. When I square root 1/2, I'm going to get the square root of 1/2, but I'm also going to get the square root of negative square root of 1/2. It's plus or minus the square root of 1/2. So I've got sine theta is equal to square root of 1/2, and then it's also going to be equal to negative square root of 1/2. So I write both of those equations separately. And now all I've got to do is do the inverse and find out what I get when I put in a square root of 1/2. Well, that's going to be a 45 degrees. And then I go and find my other angle, and that's going to be 180 minus 45, or 135 degrees. And see, now I'm going to do this with the negative, and I'm going to get a negative 45 degrees. I go across the sign, and I get 180 plus 45, and so that's going to give me 225 degrees. Now, I can take the negative 45 and add 360 to it, and that'll give me 315 degrees. And so there's my 4 angles, 4 answers for this one. And that's all there is. All right. Thanks for watching. Hope that helped.